to our second live release management webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before we jump into the content, we're just going to give very quick introductions from myself and the team. So my name is Elian. I'm a P2P architect here at Barker's, and I've been working on the digital team now for just under 2 years. In terms of my role, I work under Steve and I help assist him in end-to-end Coupa implementations. I also head up the managed service line that we have, and I own my own projects as well. Craig, on to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Craig and I'm a P2P architect at Barker's. I've been involved in a number of Coupa implementations across the Coupa suite, and I work under both Steve and Elian to support them with our client implementations. Steve?
I'm Steve and I'm a solution architect at Barker's with around 10 years Coupa platform experience, not only with Barker's for the last 3 years implementing the platform for a wide range of customers across a wide range of modules, but also previously as a system admin, so sort of being where you are now, reviewing these sort of release notes, working out what changes need to go in the system and preparing for them. Thanks.
Great, thank you for the introduction, both. So in terms of how the session is going to run, me key upgrades which we're taking you through in this deck. Along the majority of these upgrades, we'll be jumping into the system to give you a live demonstration as well. So hopefully you get a good idea as how these are going to affect your current Coupa processes. In terms of the agenda, Craig will be running you through procurement, invoicing and platform upgrades. Myself will be expenses in Coupa Pay. I'm going to finish off with sourcing and contracts. Once we've gone through all the content, Steve will very quickly take you through how you should prepare for these release notes, and then we will have some time for any questions that you have. So any questions from the content that you see today, please feel free to drop them into the chat box and we will have some time at the end of the session to take you through them. So without further ado, Craig, do you want to start off with procurement?
Thank you, Elian. So firstly, I will start with the procurement updates. The first change is the improved catalogue user experience. This involves a refreshed interface, allowing you to view all catalogues on a page, making it easier and simpler to find the correct one for you. This feature is on by quickly show you this in the system. So from the home page, I navigate over and hover over catalogues and click on the all catalogues page. And once the new page where you can see all the system. The all catalogues page offers a cleaner presentation of your catalogues with new features and visible logos that make it easier to find what you're looking for. You can sort suppliers alphabetically. You can configure how many catalogues to display per page, and you can even search for a specific supplier. The second procurement change is the ability to now plan ahead with scheduled purchase order issuance. This update will allow you to schedule when approved requisitions are converted to purchase orders. This update will allow for greater control and flexibility. Again, by default, this is only available with those at the admin or buyer role, and it will affect your integrations due to an order header change. Again, I'm just going to quickly show you this in the system. So from the home page, if I navigate over to the request tab, it will take me to the requisitions page. From here, once it loads, you will see below a requisition that is pending approval. If I click on the tick box of that requisition, it will then allow me to select schedule issuance. If I click on that, it will then pop up with the PO issuance schedule, where I can select a specific issuance date, add a retry interval of up to 90 days to automatically reschedule issuance if the requisition isn't approved by the schedule date, or to choose to exclude requisitions with existing schedules to avoid overriding schedules. So from here, I select the date of the 12th and confirm. This will refresh this, and so from here, if I go that request, and once it loads, if I scroll down on the line, you can see that there's a handy graphic which now shows the scheduled date. If at the bottom I bypass approvals and order, It will then refresh the page. And then if I go back into that order at the top, once it loads, at the top, it will outline that although the requisition has been ordered, the PO hasn't been created yet, as is scheduled for later. This is beneficial for whatever reason, as if for whatever reason you may not want a supplier to receive any POs at the time of approval, and this will greatly help with that and give you a lot more control. I'll take you through one notice-related update. The change involves expanded dispute options to improve workflows. Unlike previously, you can now dispute invoice before rejecting a supply invoice. As disputes are now supported from multiple states, this further reduces rework and helps keep process pending receipt. Whether you or a supplier enter the invoice, means you can now redirect invoices back to accounts payable when they need corrections instead of leaving them in status. Again, this is enabled by default. They do not affect your roles and permissions, do not affect your integrations. And again, I will show this in the system. So from the home page, I go to setup, users. For instance, I'm going to act as James, who initial, and go to select the invoice. I will see an invoice that has the status pending approval. James was in that approval. We're now able to, whereas before I was able to reject. This is beneficial as it gives AP workflows more agility and reduces rework. I then click on disputes and then select and press disputes. Once it loads, it will then pop up saying that the invoice has been disputed. To show withdrawals, I will go back into my account, then navigate down, select pending. I'm able to withdraw the invoice now this status before you. Again, this is beneficial as it allows AP to take the same actions across a range of invoice statuses, which makes it less confusing. Platform update. This update includes easily granting access to documents to the user or group in a comment. You can now grant access. And again, this is on by default. It does not affect your roles and permissions nor your integrations. I'm just going to quickly show that is in pending. Again, if I go to the requests tab, if I click on that request for a laptop and scroll down, I can type in James and press add. Here regarding access for mentioned user, if I click on the drop down, you can see that I have access. Continue. You will now see that James has been added and the document has been shared with James, and he is now a watcher on the requisition. This update allows for a quick way to share documents with other users, and this feature also works with several other documents in Coupa, including expense reports. Now I'll hand over to Elian, who will talk you through the next updates.
Great. So I'm just going to update this the AI expense parsing. So as you'll know, for users that are using the expense module currently, when you use to upload this report into the Coupa system, Coupa will the currency, the merchant name, and the expense date. With this new generative AI enabled, Coupa will also pop the expense fields we discussed before, and the expense category, the merchant address, and also the card number. So when this is being configured, there's going to be very little to no information that the user has to populate on that expense report, which is going to really quickly streamline that process for the user. It's not going to be on by default. There's some very simple setup that the admin needs to do. And once enabled, there's no sort of permissions. Users need to use this feature. So quickly just going to jump into the system to show you how to enable this. As an admin, we go to the bottom of the company information and we select this tick box here. Once that's been ticked, it's going to appear in your setup, which is going to be expense AI settings. So we go into that, and here's where we configure the mapping. So once we enable these features, we're saying that Coupa can use this expense parsing and do that automatic map into those fields. A point to note on the card number and the merchant location, these aren't standard fields on the Coupa expense reports. So you will need to create custom fields on those expense reports if you do wish to capture the card number or merchant location. Once those custom fields has been created, you can then map them in this section here. Once all that configuration has been done, I'm now just going to show you what this new generative AI looks like. So I'm just going to jump in as a basic user and raise an expense report. So we're going to act as Billy. We'll go to travel expenses. And then we are going to create an expense report. And we're going to load a hotel receipt from my pictures, or my images, apologies. So we search for a hotel receipt and we load it into the system. Going to take a couple of minutes for the parsing to take place, but you should see very soon that these fields will be automatically populated. So now you can see the expense category has been populated. It's picked out lodging, which is correct. Expense date, total currency, VAT rate has been applied, the merchant, descriptions even been populated for us here. And you can see here the custom fields that we've added to the expense report for location and card number have all been pulled from that expense report. So as you can see from a user perspective, there is very little that the user has to fill in. All this information is correct as well. The user can go and edit it if necessary, but this whole process should streamline the expense submission for the user and just make it a lot more of a nicer process when raising those expense reports in Coupa. On to the next one. This is purely for the Coupa mobile app. It's going to be on by default. But what the upgrade is before this, users would only be able to upload one expense receipt at a time into the app. Now, with this upgrade, users can load up to 10 expense receipts at a time, which of course is going to save users lots of time when they've got lots of expense reports that they wish to claim back. We are going to jump into the Coupa mobile app. Please bear with this is the first time we've done a mobile demonstration. So I'm just going to share my screen from my app. And hopefully this should go smoothly. So just sharing my screen now. And then we're going to jump over to Coupa Mobile, get Craig out the way, and then we're going to add new receipts. So we've gone into the expenses section, we're in receipts, we select add new, we go to photos, and then we go into our collections, and then we locate the expense receipts that we wish to upload. As we said, we can upload up to 10. I've only got 5 in this example, but we add these expense receipts. Apologies, I realized I didn't select the last one. So for this example, we've got 4 receipts which we're loading. Coupa is going to then generate those receipt lines. And once they've been generated, we can then create an expense report off the back of those. It'll take a few seconds to read the expense report and populate those expense fields. Once those expense receipt lines have been created, then we will be able to generate an expense report off the back of that. So hopefully this should happen soon. I promise when I did it earlier in the demos, it didn't take this long. I think it just showed me up, but the idea is once this comes in, we go to the expense reports, we add a new report, R43, apologies, and then we create an expense report off the receipts, and you can see the receipts are here, and we can load an expense line for each of these receipts. And then once all the fields have been populated, the user can load this and submit it for approval. So you can see that we can bulk load expense reports very quickly when it's expected. It uses a lot of time, and it means it can bulk load expense from the mobile app. So back onto the slideshow, we're now going to just quickly go over just some Coupa Pay updates. Firstly, this is going to impact the direct debit payment users. So as of September, TransferMate have now introduced a direct debit daily limit of 2 million USD. This doesn't apply to reverse wire payments, but what this does mean is for users that are using reverse wire payments, when this daily limit has been exceeded, Coupa will automatically transfer the direct debit payments into reverse wire payments. If you don't have reverse wire payments set up, you can't release the batch. Coupa will move that payment batch to the next day when the daily limit has been reset. For this upgrade, we do strongly advise that you get in contact with your Coupa Pay representative if you are using direct debit payments. Get your reverse wire payments set up and get an understanding of how this is going to affect your current Coupa processes. On to the last one. This is a big upgrade. We've had a lot of talk about this. A lot of customers have asked about this, and it's been in the Coupa pipeline for quite a while now. Very exciting. Coupa is now setting up their own payment card program with Virtual Card. Coupa Card is going to operate exactly the same way as it would be Card. You'll be able to use VCard on PO, VCard on invoice, Ghost Card, etc. The benefit with this is now you can add that virtual card to your Apple Pay or your phone wallet, and you can tap to pay using your phone. This is obviously going to be massively beneficial for those one-time supplier use cases or your virtual card pre-approved expenses. Gone are the days that you have to enter the details over the online. You can actually go in store and tap to pay. Going to be massively beneficial for expenses. Pre-approved expenses. I'll get any to draw down on that. One point to note on this, unfortunately, it is only available in the US region at the minute. However, we do see Coupa roll this out to the rest of the regions in the near future. That's it for my upgrades for some sourcing and contracts.
Yeah, just starting with a couple of the upgrades on the sourcing module. So the first is around the ability to set up some auto creation of sourcing events, and this is specifically around expiring agreements. So if you've got contracts in the system linked to something like maybe your catalogue shelves, and you want to make sure that when those agreements are due to expire, that you run a new tender and sourcing event off the back of it, then you can now automate that process. So it's on by default. There isn't any change to the roles and permissions, but there will be some stuff your admin will need to do to set this up in the system. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So to do this, we'll need to use the process automated, and that's what's that automatic creation of a sourcing event. And I've just got one set up here. So just have a quick look at how those settings in the system. So when I go into it, we'll see that we're obviously going to trigger this off the contract documents that you've got linked to those catalogues. That might be driving that need for a new sourcing event when it's expiring. The main thing we can do is we can control what template we're going to send out part of that event creation, and it's essentially we're looking at that contract expiry date and the process automated to trigger this. So if you've got lots of contracts in the system, you know, rather than having to manually keep an eye on the expiry dates and work out when these events need to get created, that process. And as you can see, we can put conditions into the process automated. So you might have 4 or 5 use cases. started the ability for users to request sourcing events. So up until now, this is something that Coupa got it for things like supplier onboarding, for requesting contracts. There's a dedicated form that you can set up to request it. When users do that, it automates the process for you in things like supplier onboarding contracts, but they never had it within sourcing. And now Coupa have introduced that sourcing request form that you can build in the system. So again, no, it's on by default. Those forms will be available as soon as R43 comes out, and there's no change to the roles and permissions to users to be able to use these forms, but you will need to do some of that admin setup in the background, and essentially it's that sourcing request form, and also setting up some approvals for the form so that it goes to the relevant team to approve. So I'm just going to go you through what that form looks like in the system once we've done that setup. So as a user, what I do is that form's been set up. I will see that I've got that form in the drop down. When I click on it, you can see I've got that sourcing request form option. We've kept ours quite simple just for the purpose of the demo, but essentially when you're building that form, you'll have a wide range of the fields from the sourcing event that you'll want to pull into that to drive the creation of that event. So I'm just going to give it an event name. I'm going to leave the currency as that, add our commodity that it relates to, and put in a budget of say 70,000. And then I've just put some approver only fields in here that we'll look at in a section for the purpose of the demo. So build in my fields as a user, submit it for approval. And then just for the speed of the demo, I'm going to do this as myself, but this would generally be somebody like your procurement team that then go and review the form and look at it and decide whether it can move forward. So as I said, I've put those approver only sections. So the approver can determine which of our templates is going to go out. If we need any questionnaires to be generated within the sourcing event, and add a savings value for the event as well. So once I've got that sorted, just go back to the approval page and we'll see that we've got all our stuff filled out, and we'll approve that event creation. And then off the back of that, we go to our sourcing section. We should now see that we've got our new event created in the system for us. So it's just a way for users to do those sourcing requests now and automatically create the event. Any of you that have got sourcing, you may well source. Often we would, as part of the implementation, set up a sourcing form, but it's just a general form that doesn't link into sourcing. So if you've got one of those in the system, you may want to think about going and replacing that with this new sourcing request form that will automate the process for you. So next, moving on to some updates around contracts. So the first is a nice feature that allows you to send out clickwrap contracts from Coupa now. So this is where you've got a very simple contract document, doesn't need drafting, negotiation, or approvals. It's just something that needs to go out to one of your suppliers to be signed. And so the template that's set up in the system is exactly as it needs to go out. And you can now, as a user, request those to be sent out without any need for speaking to procurement or somebody else within an admin role to send out a contract to the supplier with the right template, etc. That can all be done by the user now. You will need to make sure that you've got your e-signature tool set up for this to work, and it'll again be a case of your admin going in and building that request form first for it in the system. Once that's all done, I'm just going to show you what that form looks like and how the user can send that request out. So again, it's a form, so we're going to go to our home page, go to our forms section, and we'll see we've got this clickwrap demo form to fill out. First thing you can see is within the form builder, you'll have to select this allow clickwrap option and default it to ticked. You want to make that editable to the users, and also you want to set your contract type and template that's going to be used. So this will be a very specific contract template. Maybe it's an NDA or something like that, that just needs to go out to the supplier to be signed without any adjustment. In our demo, we've got both DocuSign and Adobe Sign to select, but it may just be one. So again, you may want to just default the e-signature tool that's going to be used when this contract gets sent out. And then we simply just need to identify which one of our entities this contract's with. And then if it's existing or not, then what the supply name is. I'm just going to click the review. Done that, I'm just going to click it, and this contract is set to auto approve, auto apply. There's no need for anybody else to do anything, and that contract has now gone out to the supplier to be signed without anybody else having to touch that. So a nice feature if you've got those sort of contracts that users are sending out without any sort of need for a procurement person or somebody like that having to get involved in the process. Finally, moving on to an update around exporting your contract documents. So rather than having in the past to go into each contract, especially if you're needing to get all of the attachments out of the system, having to go into each one individually, export those attachments, you can now do that en masse, which just makes life a little bit easier in those circumstances. So the way that this would work, if we go to our contract section, and this will obviously be somebody with that permission to access the contract section, such as an admin or a buyer. You'll see that you've got this documents tab in the system. So when you click on that, it just takes us through to a slightly different UI where we do the documents and export on the system. So just when this loads, you'll see what this looks like. And I'm just going to select the all contracts view this time. You could use the filter to say, I just want to pick out certain contracts that I want to export, but I'm just going to take the option to use the all of this on this occasion. Apologies, I'm just going to pick them out in a second. So when I do the export, I'll get a notification to say it's going to send me an email. That email will have a link that I can click on and get the zip file. I'm not going to wait for that to come out, and I'm just going to find one that we've used previously in my downloads. So that zip file is going to look a bit like this. We'll have the Excel with those list of contracts we've exported, but then if we drill into the folder, we'll see that we've got all of those attachments as well in there. So as you can see, nice and easy if you need to get a lot of your contract documents out all in one go. So that's all the updates that we wanted to go through today. There's a number of other updates as part of R43, and you'll want to have a look at through the release note to see if there's any others that you think that may have. I just want to talk you through how best to prepare for an update. So it's really going to be key to be prepared, looking at when these releases are due to come out. Coupa publishes the dates for the next sort of 3 releases on Compass, so you'll be able to see when those dates are and prepare. And prior to those releases coming into your test instance, around a month before, they'll send out the release notes for you to have a read through and see which ones that might apply to you. So you want to have a look at that, identify which new features are of interest that you may want to test, and also which changes, maybe such as the TransferMate one I talked about earlier, that might impact your product design. Once you've done that, once the release is into your test system, go and do any changes and configuration you need to do to use these features, and then go through a period of testing these and making sure they're working as expected. Before you implement them into live, you want to make sure that you've communicated out to users what changes are coming, and maybe updated any of your training documentation at the same time as well. And once you're live, just make sure you've got that support process for users that are affected by any of these changes. So now we've just got a little bit of time to go through any questions. Look to the chat. Look at the one that was free. Let us know if you've got any other chat information, questions you want to put out. So first, I've got a question: are there any other ways to automate sourcing events of the contract expiry date? And so yes, Again, looking at that process automator in the system, and I'll just jump back very quickly into the system just to show you what that looked like. The other option you've got is one of the key use cases using requisitions to automate sourcing events. So if I go back into creating a new sourcing event, just select my document event as a requisition list on this occasion. And this option, we can take action template. And obviously this is going to be certain ones, so you want to put some conditions about when to drive those sourcing events off that use case. But another key one, using conditions to drive that. Next, we've just got one around expenses. So does the software recognize other currencies than GBP? Ellen, do you want to pick that one up?
Yes, sorry, I should have demoed that in the mobile app, but essentially, as you saw when I loaded an expense report into the Coupa software, when it did the scraping, it populated all those fields. The same kind of logic will apply for the Coupa mobile as well. So as long as it's clear that there's a different currency, not GBP, Coupa will pick that up in the Coupa mobile app, and it will also try and populate as many of those fields as it can in the mobile app as well for the user.
I think that's all questions in the chat that I can see. Has anybody else got any questions before we finish the webinar? Okay, perfect. So just reshare my screen for a second. So if you have got any sort of questions that you think about after the webinar, or you just want to speak to us about any support or questions about how to prepare for the next release, feel free to get on the screen there. I'll just leave. That'll give you a link to our delivery director's Matt Hardacre's calendar to request a meeting, which you can use, and we'll send this deck out after the call, which will have that QR code on as well. So thanks for joining us on today's webinar, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thanks, all.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, bye.